Good morning. So we're going to present a quick idea that Morantis has been working on as part of our team on presenting enterprise-grade RBAC for Openstack. We all know today that Openstack suffers with policy.json files. So we've been doing some work with the Oslo team to try and convince them to provide us with real RBAC, so we can do effective role-based authentication within the Openstack environment. So we're going to talk a little bit about the traditional Openstack AAA design, what the current state of Keystone, Midpoint, and Fortress is. Won't be doing the demo this morning, and envisioned end-state architecture in a couple of ways, which we're looking at that. So traditional Openstack, we have users, roles, and projects. The user accounts are not really connected to anything except themselves. You have the user role project concept. Project users are related to projects and can be a member of multiple projects, which is a challenge. And roles have users assigned to them as part of the exercise. Roles are then set permissions through the policy.json. And those are consumed mostly by Oslo, but nowadays some of the older projects still haven't converted fully to Oslo. So that is a challenge with this process. The authorization process is done through the Oslo policy and the enforcer class within Oslo. The rules for Oslo for policy are in the policy.json files currently today, and different projects consume them in different ways. So this is a major problem with what's happening with Oslo. Typically, there's one policy.json file per service. That's the norm. But there is some work being done in the community to move that into the database so we can consume it from a database. But that still doesn't give us the ability to do things via hierarchical roles, and it doesn't allow us to do anything using an LDAP store. So enterprises use LDAP, not a MySQL database. And to make any changes to the authorization, we need cloud admin access. So you need to be an admin user to be able to make any changes. You can't delegate rights. So this is the way it looks today. User auth, everything's handled through Keystone. All the roles, projects, and assignments are within the Keystone database. And then the various APIs reference Oslo policy and the enforcer class, which checks the policy.json file, which then eventually gives us permissions. The problem with that is it's a very static way of doing things. It's very hard to update. It's a very complex set of rules. We also can't do anything hierarchical, so we can't assign people in different OUs different rights, and we can't do things on a timed basis. So the goals, move away from policy.json. Policy.json worked 3 years ago. Today it is cumbersome, messy way to do things. Although there have been some changes, you can update it in real time now, but it's still not perfect. We need the ability to delegate permission management. So typical organization, I want to be able to delegate my permissions to sub-admins. We need to maintain all the features in OpenStack. We can't be, only support v3 APIs or other components. And we need an external user management tool. We've used Midpoint at the moment for all of our development and testing work, but there are others. So the future. We'll do user work through Midpoint. So user roles and information will be user accounts will be held in Midpoint. Role and project assignment can still be done through Keystone, but the assignment backend could be SQL. Sorry, this is the current integration architecture that we're working on. Could be SQL. Moving forward. Sorry, I missed out the Fortress call. The idea is then to use Fortress to handle all the RBAC components, handle all the assignments within Fortress, still using the roles. Currently, the way the model is working, we've created a modification to the enforcer class within Oslo to do the RBAC lookups within Fortress. This is done on a user basis at the moment, not a role basis, because of the way that the information is passed. The goals, centralize the assignment backend and policy backend. Currently, we have them split in the model that we're working on. Leverage Fortress to introduce new features so that we can do full OpenStack RBAC model. Delegation of permissions, which I spoke about, hierarchical RBAC, so inheritance of roles depending on where you are within a structure. Native support for multi-site replication. Open LDAP LDAP does replication really, really well. So we can just utilize that to make it do it, rather than trying to use some complex SQL replication solution in the background. Then leverage Midpoint to give us a single point of management. Currently, we can create user accounts in Midpoint, but we still have to make modifications within Keystone to make it work. What's also really important from an enterprise perspective is auditing. We need to know who did what and when for audit purposes. So, in-state architecture, this is pretty much where we are today. We've got users, roles, and role create within Midpoint. We've got the Openstack assignment connector, which currently effectively replicates that information back into the database. The authentication backend is LDAP. The assignment backend for role assignment is still SQL. And we're still using OSLOader policy, but the OSLOader policy classes, which is the enforcer class, has been modified, and this is not upstream code yet, hasn't been accepted, is able to look up on a user basis into Fortress to verify rights. The problem with this at the moment is it's very, very complex to set up, because you've got to set up every single API call and the rights for each individual user at the moment, because we can't do it based on roles. Future is to have everything going through Midpoint, the role assignments, the role creations, the permissions, and the user CRUD, allowing Keystone and OSLOader policy to either get the assignments from Fortress and allow Fortress backend to handle all of that. The authentication backend can still be your own LDAP service. So it's the ability to separate those to separate LDAP or separate database services at the end of the day. The Oslo team currently is in discussions around how we're going to enable pluggable enforcer classes. It hasn't really been realized at this point. I was chatting to the former Oslo PTL this morning, and they're going to be discussing it during the course of the week. So how do we get there? We need the Openstack assignment connector, that's what I've been talking about. We need assignments and user creation, and we need permissions. We need to be able to go into Horizon and do these things, basically, or do it from the API calls and have it pass through into the LDAP. We need to get this OpenStack permissions API sorted out. We need a way to assign permissions and assign roles easily and simply. Keystone to Fortress support for groups, projects. Right now, the way that OpenStack handles the hierarchy of projects and the assignments of users and groups doesn't really lend itself directly to going into an LDAP-based OU hierarchy. So we need to do a bit of work there. And we're chosen Fortress. We're using Fortress Commander because it's an easy way to manage Fortress. We need to extend the Fortress Commander interfaces to make it a little bit easier to utilize all of this. So yeah, that's where we are, quick and easy. I have a demo that I can do offline for anybody who's interested, but it's a bit, and we will publish everything online fairly soon. Thank you.